Take number two. It is I again, the man with the challenging headgear. Hi, Mom. Uh, and here I am in the glorious Sequoia, Nevada range. Uh, just did a long drive down to a place called Horse Meadow, which, ironically, and quite typically for California, has neither horses nor is a meadow. Anyway, and there in the background is my trusty steed Goober, who brought me all this way and luckily did not blow up yet, which has been a challenge because it's taken a year's worth of work of fucking with the thing to get it to not squirt oil out every damn direction and try and set fire to itself. Anyway, it's Labor Day weekend, 2025, a Monday, and wore myself out this weekend working. So for Labor Day, I thought I'd be uncharacteristic and like not labor. We'll see how that works. So I went for a drive, and this is where I ended up. That tree's probably been dead longer than I've been alive. Anyway, I find it delightfully funny that all of my friends believe that I live in the middle of the Mojave Desert with just barren dirt and dead things, maybe some cactus. Of course, keep in mind, all of my friends live in Los Angeles and seem to think that that's God's country, and why on earth I would want to live in such a God-forsaken, miserable, ugly place like this. Well, folks, I don't know what to tell you. I guess I have funny ideas about what's a great place to live and what isn't. True, no taco stands. No delightfully intriguing street people on meth. No udon noodles. No Teslas. So, yes, I guess this is the godforsaken deep end of the pool. Anyway, to each his own. And, for all those people in Los Angeles and think that's great and this is horrible, good, please, stay there. Don't need you here. Enjoy your tacos. Anyway, this was not supposed to be a rant about tacos. Not really supposed to be a rant about anything, except that I'm thinking this week a lot about the world that was and the world that is. I am more so reminded every day that the world that I grew up in, the world that I got used to in my 20s and 30s or so, does not exist anymore. It's hard to say how many of the dregs even do. Me living in, small town Bodfish, California, I feel a lot like I'm trying to resurrect the dead. Small town, no money, best years behind it, almost everything boarded up, no jobs. People are in a mean mood because they're tired of being poor and tired of not having any opportunities except to be poor, and can't think of any options, probably because there aren't any. And I get that. And, I come out to places like this and, there's, I can buy housing cheap. I can buy commercial property at prices you couldn't even entertain paying the rent for in Los Angeles. And you have the potential for doing things, and, so I've bought into this with the hope of being able to, knock the dust off and glue it back together and make them growing things again. But, I gotta ask myself, am I barking up the wrong tree? I'm not a particularly good economist, and I would attribute most of that to I don't understand economics because I went to college, and they taught me economics. And it took decades to discover that what they taught me was bald-faced fucking lies. But the damage was done. I was poisoned by their view of how they said things worked when it flat wasn't true. And at 58 now, I'm trying to contend with flushing that poison out of my system and seeing the world as it is. And when I dig down under all the layers, it just looks like a never-ending chain of people shaking hands with their fingers crossed behind their backs. Lies upon lies, kited upon lies, held together with the illusion of Scotch tape, with some more lies, with some hyperbolic nonsense, some logical fallacies, and a whole bunch of emotional appeals that don't seem to hold water in the slightest if you scrutinize it for half a second. But yet, the bulk of the population seems to believe. I've never understood that. When I talk to individual people, I'm always amazed that even the most, shall I say, unsophisticated, unchallenged individual has some very definite thinking. Sometimes it's quite sophisticated. Some of it's very odd. Yesterday I was interacting with a neighbor across the street from one of my houses because there was a domestic dispute and little old lady was crying her eyes out, and we both went over to try and find out what the issue was, and she just pointedly ignored us and kept crying her eyes out. So anyway, struck up a brief conversation with the neighbor, and right off the bat, he asked me, do you believe in Jesus? And, being in a small town, I've heard that question before. I tend to be particularly guarded about that because, there's a no-win scenario. If I tell him the truth, which is, no, I don't believe in the invisible Sky Father or his son, who did something really insane in order to save us, and then, anyway, we won't get into that. I believe that my view of how the universe works is a little more sophisticated, probably no more right, but something more sophisticated. Anyway, so I kind of, hedged my bets and said, well, not particularly, expecting that, the next thing was going to be a 45-minute sermon about how Jesus will save my soul and how I needed to come to his church next week because I was in imminent threat of going to hell. If only. Turns out, come to find out, quite the opposite. Surprise, surprise. No, he wanted to tell me that the whole Jesus thing was actually a misdirect, and Satan, or the Antichrist, is actually Jesus, and so the second coming of Jesus is the Antichrist coming, and I'm doing this, and I've been lied to my whole life. And okay, I was thrown a little off balance there. I wasn't expecting just when you think you have the game figured out, surprise! They throw a new wrinkle in. Anyway, so there's this man. I don't know his background. I don't know how he's come to this, but my translation in my head is he's come to the understanding that he has, once again, probably, white guy, balding, slightly pudgy, probably my age, give or take 5 years. And I believe what he was channeling is something that I hear a fair bit of people of my general-ish circumstances and conditions and age, is this this understanding. They may not know the details, but they know they've been lied to. They've been lied to their whole lives. What the world is, what the country is, how the economy works, what money is, how you get ahead in life and how you don't, what you should believe in, what God you should pray to, what goat sacrifices you could do. All dog shit. Or actually less than dog shit. At least dog shit gives you something. This is I don't know what. Illusion, I suppose. Unfortunately, knowing that doesn't get me any closer to what the truth is. And that's the thing that really annoys the shit out of you. To know it's all a lie, Well, congratulations. You've just discovered you're in the middle of nowhere. You are in the middle of nowhere. Now, how do you triangulate and get out of the middle of nowhere to? Um, I don't know. I don't know where you're supposed to be going to. Um, and that is difficult. How do you undo a lifetime of lies? How would you even recognize reality? If I've spent a whole life going through the American Western education system and American colleges and reading the newspaper and listening to the media and then trying to re-educate myself with a never-ending series of variety of YouTube videos only to come to find out that all of that was bullshit too, and algorithmic steering and God knows how many not to not to put on my conspiracy theory hat, but how many of those YouTube videos out there are funded by groups of any wide variety? Government might not be out of the question either. Um, for those of you that watch, video porn, things like what is it, Pornhub, that type of thing. You ever wonder who's paying for that? Because their business model doesn't seem to make much money. Um, and Unfortunately, you start asking uncomfortable questions, and you don't even get uncomfortable answers. You just get air. And I don't know if the microphone picks up on this, but I can hear the wind blowing through the pine trees, which is delightfully peaceful. Um, so that's where my head has been for the past week. Is okay. The illusion has collapsed because it's not. At least the illusion accomplished something. It provided a decent middle class living. That thing where I started in this conversation talking about, I remember when I was a kid, and every time there was a 3-day weekend, we went out to places like this, or out to Havasu, or my parents had a jet boat, they had a camper. They were not wealthy individuals. We were, lower to middle class. Uh, we maybe had slightly better or slightly worse things than everybody else we knew. We took vacations like everybody else we knew. We went out and did things outdoors like everybody else we knew. It was not unusual. My family being lower-ish middle class, we didn't usually take 3-week-long trips to Europe, but I knew plenty of people that did. People who had blue-collar, middle-class jobs. Was not that long ago they could afford their own house, 2 cars, raise a couple of kids, and still take 2.5, 3 weeks off to go to Germany because they thought they might like the food there. And now all the people I know are working their asses off, even the wealthy ones. And they don't live lives like that. None of my friends now have boats or campers. And if they did, they couldn't afford to take the time off to use them. And we're paid more. The money's worth less. But even when you do these calculations, I've seen enough statistics that point out is that okay, productivity has gone up 50, 100, 200%. I forgot the number now. Over the past 3 decades, while wages have flatlined. Okay, well, wages flatlined should have meant then I should, certainly with the income that I have, be able to live the lifestyle that my parents were able to live in their 30s. I'm nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. And I'm doing well compared to the people I know. I'm hitting it out of the ballpark compared to them. People work harder. They're more freaked out. They got nothing to show for it. And their future looks like a light at the end of the tunnel that's dimming. And I don't know why. If everything's flat, how come your buying power is gone? How come every company is raising prices because they're losing their asses and they're about to file bankruptcy, and we have to raise the prices because everything's so much more expensive. The materials we have to buy are so expensive, the wages are so expensive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, how is that possible? What weird formulation is this? How is it in 1970 a guy that bussed tables at a diner could afford a little humble bungalow house, and probably a decent used car, and a few minor vices, occasional cigarette or a beer, that type of thing? How were they able to do that on a job that, what, back in 1970, that would have been a $3.25 an hour job? And now that job is 21, 25 bucks an hour, and they can't live as well as they would have on the 325 in 1970. Where's that money going? I'm not hearing it. I've heard lots of pundits, blah, 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 taxes are too high, government's too expensive, blah, blah, blah. And then I also hear shit about how, basically, unless you're making $120,000 a year plus, the percentage of what you're paying in taxes doesn't even break even to the services that, the cost of the services that the average person is using. How is that possible? How can I be 20, my tax bracket's probably, if you figure sales tax and everything else, in the mid to high 30s. What services is that money buying? I can't find it. Okay, we got bad roads. Yeah, okay, we got police department that's good for writing me parking tickets, but God help me, if there was ever something serious I needed their help, I'd be fucked. Basically, if you're not bleeding to death, don't bother calling them. And if you are bleeding to death, don't expect they'll get there in time to do any good about it. So, out here, I looking around, I can see hydroelectric plants and dams and fisheries and paved roads out to places like this. This road is dirt for 7 miles. But the funny thing is you can look at it in corners, and it was paved, probably in the 1970s. All the infrastructure that's here was built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. There was money to build a fishery in 1950-something when this lake was put in. And the fishery, it looks like it hasn't operated in 15 years. All the property was paid for decades ago. And that thing doesn't operate because there's not enough money anymore to run a facility that's already paid for. And I see that everywhere. All this crumbling infrastructure. We had the money to build and fully staff these things back in the day. And now we don't even have the money to staff them, let alone even maintain them. Where'd that money go? How? It's obviously not going to the government with the deficits that they're generating. They're spending double what they're bringing in, or so. Who's getting that money? I wish someone could explain this to me. I must be the dumbest motherfucker on the planet because I can't figure out how to make the math work. It's going somewhere. Somebody please tell me where. And this has to be reversed. This keeps going. The Western world is not going to be a place that I'm going to recognize anymore. All this technological advancement, this is what is the point of civilization? Supposedly, to create a environment where life is more stable and less of a struggle, and to provide the fertile soil and the opportunities for people to explore the limits of their abilities and their creativity, to be able to uncover things that they may not have never known about themselves, to develop skills, and to be able to share that with other human beings, and to get a fair respect and compensation for that hard work and that effort when it's put out. How does the civilization we've got now and the civilization we're moving towards look anything like that? The robots take the jobs. The majority of the people become unemployed. Um, the robots eventually build robots, and then it's kind of a self-perpetuating system. And the optimists say, oh, it's a world of abundance. You'll be able to press a button and have anything you could ever want. Really? Really? Do you really believe the bullshit that's coming out of your mouth? At any time in human history, have you ever seen a behavior that makes that sound sane? Because I haven't. No. What sounds more believable is for a small percentage of the population, they're going to be living George Jetson. And for everyone else, they're going to be living, Mad Max? I don't know. Something desperate. Because the people who have never given a shit about the people who have not. And the number of people that are going to be in the have not category looks like it's going to explode. I wish I could believe that the people with the money and the power are going to become so Christ-like that they will feel sorry for the great unwashed masses and share in the bounty. That sound like anything you know about history? Anyway, not to be dark. The point is the things that were out there, they're still out there. I'm standing in it. We had ways of making this work before. Things tend to go in cycles. It can't rain forever. We can't let it decay forever. There's got to be some point where we hit bottom. Who knows what that looks like? And we reconstitute things. Boy, I hope it's soon. Anyway, happy Labor Day, the tubes. I'm Mom again. The guy with the funny hat. Over and out.